going on right now.
I'm gonna go turn on the Facebook.
Okay.
Andre, where are you? What, like, location-wise?
I'm up in Maine.
Oh, yeah, where?
Reed Field, right outside of Augusta.
Yep. We'll be passing through Monday.
I'm up in Maine.
So Ken, we're recording now.
Okay.
Reed Field, right outside of Augusta.
We'll be passing through Monday.
I'm up in Maine.
So Ken, we're recording now.
Okay. There's a delay, Andre, so that's not gonna work.
There's a delay with me?
Yeah, it says there's a delay, and so it feeds into the background noise. Okay. There's a delay, Andre, so that's not gonna work.
There's a delay with me?
Yeah, it says there's a delay, and so it feeds.
I don't know what to say.
All right, so just stay on the phone.
Yep.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. This is Town Council meeting Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. The Shoreham Town Council's meeting via telecommunications pursuant to State of Rhode Island Executive Order 2046 dated June 12th, 2020. There is Zoom access. Dial toll free 833-548-0276 or 888-788-0099. The meeting ID is 997-775-5691. And the password is 562283. This information is also available on ClerkBase
out there.
with the town agenda, the council
This
agenda.
computer has a mind of its own. It's doing its own thing. It's changing screens all by itself. I didn't touch it.
I can hear you, Sam.
Oh, you can? I'm sorry.
Everybody else.
Sorry. I'm having computer problems here. Very frustrating.
Okay, well, hopefully we can continue. First item on the agenda is the warden's report. For the warden's report, I will point out that obviously the island's been very busy. Not quite as busy as other places along the shoreline, but we are seeing our share of uptick of folks coming out to enjoy the beaches and everything else. Hopefully, people will get the word to stay safe on the boats and on the beaches and on the streets. I did see that the governor was shutting down 75% of the parking at Scarborough State Beach and also at Misquamicut State Beach. So I hope we won't have to go that route out here. There was a meeting earlier in the week with several business persons on Monday. It was facilitated by Jess Willie. And there was a good discussion, roundtable discussion on how things were going. There was some concern mentioned about mask compliance. And we had a discussion about that and also about businesses operating and how they were doing. Let's see, I just said to report the passing of Hank Lemoyne earlier last week. Longtime school teacher and loved by many out here. So we offer condolences to the Lemoyne family. Andre, do you have anything for us this evening?
No, thank you, Ken.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public input. Do we have anything from anyone in attendance on that? All right, next item on the agenda is continued from July 8th, 2020, and that is to receive and act on the warrant for the July 27th, 2020 financial town meeting. One thing that we had left open in terms of the warrant itself was, well, there was some discussion going on, I guess, with town clerk Molly Fitzpatrick about the location. But I believe that's been resolved, and also the time. We need to decide on the time. So first things first, I believe Sam Bird is on facilities manager, and also obviously Molly Fitzpatrick. So I believe a decision has been made to have the financial town meeting at the school. And Sam, could you address that briefly in terms of the plans to do that up there? Are you with us, Sam?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've done preliminary plans for the gym and the cafeteria as a overflow space. We have, we can maintain social distancing up there of 6 feet with the spacing of the chairs. We can get approximately 200 people in the gym. And another 60 or so in the cafeteria. Actually, it's about 230 in the gym and about 60 in the cafeteria, all told. That's allowing for what I call singles. If we have members of the same household that show up, they don't need to socially distance. So we can seat 2 people next to each other, and that could potentially increase our seating depending on how many of those folks show up and how we lay out the seating. But we're looking at approximately a capacity of 250 or 60 all in. That's not a lot of comfort, not a lot of comfortable margin, I should say, for a potential heavy financial town meeting, but it's anybody's guess as to how many folks will be in attendance given the circumstances.
What would the procedure be if we suddenly decided we didn't have enough room?
That is more of a Molly question than a question for me, I think, but I would imagine it would involve either continuing or probably continuing the meeting and scrambling to figure a way to provide more space. I would think that would have to happen outside, either in the wide open under the stars, or I don't know how we could get a tent within a few days. My understanding is that we need to accomplish the tasks on the warrant before the 1st of August. So that only would give us a few days to scramble to assemble a tent. So my suspicion is we would have to do it outside and hope the weather cooperated. I don't have another plan beyond that.
It seems to me that past financial town meetings, we've had a situation where we've had at least, I would think we've had at least 15 or 20 couples there, maybe even more. That being the case, we might, I think we could, if that being the case, we could probably get close to 320 or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I figured that if we had 25% of the attendees were couples, that would add another 130 people, which would bring you up into a much more comfortable range.
Yeah. Martha,
Yeah.
Martha, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. I noticed the Sullivan tent is up. I don't know what the square footage is up there. And the other thing, I know this happened one time in the past. I'm sorry, I cannot remember when we moved the meeting. I think it was the night of the meeting we moved it. But I don't remember how long ago and from where to where.
Okay.
It might even have been back in the 80s. But I remember doing it.
My understanding, Ken, is that the folks at the Sullivan House have been approached, and we didn't get a favorable response on that.
Okay,
That's-
Molly, do you have any input on that?
I was just going to say that that's not entirely true. We didn't, we put some feelers out and didn't get a response back. I wasn't going to put that out there.
Okay, so basically, your take on an over attendance that night, how would you handle that?
I think we'd have to set up, should we have overattendance, and I don't expect it. This is, I think this is really a Sam question, but I think we would have to have a separate section outside. And we'd have to have some way of running speakers, and whether it's adjourning to the following night or trying to do it that the night of the 27th, I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. Sven, go ahead. I see your hand, Chris, hold on. Sven, go ahead.
My suggestion, Sam, would be that we actually proactively have an outside section. I do know, or at least I've heard of a couple of people that are nervous about being indoors with large crowds, all because of COVID, and would feel much more comfortable being outside. And so I want to make sure that we make the meeting available to everybody and not, get people nervous. So if I think we should do everything we can to have it an outside area right there, right by the school almost, or adjacent. So I would hope there's a way to do speakers and maybe somebody to raise a hand, or they'd have to come to the door of the gym to speak or something like that. But I think we should have an outside section to make sure that everybody is comfortable. Thank you.
Chris Willie,
Oh,
hold on, Sam. Chris Willie.
This might be a silly question. Are we allowed to basically split it into two groups and do it 2 nights?
No, not.
Thank you.
Sam, go ahead.
No, the outside presents a challenge. I have a feeling that if you make outside available for obvious reasons, almost everybody will want to sit outside. I probably would myself. The logistics of controlling who's coming and going from an outside space, counting the ballots, counting the votes, all of those present some challenges. I'm not sure they're not insurmountable, but they do present some challenges.
Not to mention the weather. Go ahead, Sven.
I think we should do everything we can, because it is an important financial town meeting, and obviously a very unique and odd year, to accommodate them. So I more than appreciate the challenges. I would love to help, but I think we need to go far to the wall to have outdoor.
Understood.
Well, just to be clear with the other, obviously there again, this may be obvious to everybody, but no one's going to be allowed in, I believe, without a mask unless they have a valid medical reason. And everyone's going to be totally encouraged to wear that mask during the meeting. We're going to try and make it, as safe as we possibly can with the social distancing and whatnot, within the framework of the gym. So, I think we'll have to, I don't know, I think we'll have to do what we have to do. And then it's goes with the year, I think. Because we do have to maintain the order of the meeting. Can't compromise that, I think. So.
Yeah, I think if you have an outside area available, I suspect that it's going to be 95% of the people will be outside. So whatever you're expecting for turnout, they will, given the choice, be outside. So we would have to provide for that. That's a new and different plan than I've been working on, but if that's the way you want to go, let me know and I'll do what I can on that. I think we figure on an outside meeting, period, if that's the case.
Any other thoughts? It sounds like it might be back to square one if you're gonna do that.
This is Molly.
Molly, go ahead.
We can make the meeting work. We'll definitely need to, it'll be a logistical, it will be back to square one for logistics, but we can definitely do it. We'll need some more personnel and we'll probably lean heavily on the police department for that. But I'd like to know if that's a directive of the council to do that.
And
Discussion.
may I?
Go ahead, Andre.
I'm just wondering, Sean at the transfer station offered that space if we wanted to do an outside. So if it was just a point of like looking for an outdoor space and not being able to find one, I did speak to Sean and he did offer that space last week. You know, I don't know if that helps, but I if people are asking for it to be outside, I agree with what Sven was saying, you know, that kind of stuff. But did the canvassers meet last week? I know they were going to have a meeting, and if they did, and did they come up with, do they have anything to add to this, or?
Andre, I met with the chair of the Board of Canvassers, the town moderator, and Sam, and Millie. Who else was there, Sam?
That was, the moderator was there. Doug Michelle was there.
Yes, the moderator. So we got together last week and we talked about how we would manage a meeting at the school with the challenges of COVID-19. We were unaware that, you know, I don't think we approached it as a mandate that we hold the meeting outside. So we didn't really focus on that. But yeah, we met and we discussed how we would put the meeting together up at the school, taking into account the challenges of the situation. If this is a mandate to have the meeting outside, we can drop back and do that.
Okay, thank you, Molly. I appreciate your input.
Andre, getting back to your last point, I would be totally against having it done at the transfer station. That would definitely not work in terms of the cost alone would be prohibitive.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's good. What's your pleasure?
I think, excuse me, this is Molly again.
Molly, go ahead.
Amy Land is pointing out that we don't have the facilities or the technology for a full outside meeting. And we definitely don't have the weather accommodation. Oh, here's Amy now.
Hi, Amy, go ahead.
Hi. I'm hearing all the concerns, and you know, balancing them is obviously tricky, and we would all prefer not to have to hold this meeting at this point in this environment, but it is where we are, and there is business of the town to be done. Given the constraints that we have with technology and site, I think an entirely outside meeting is not within the scope of what we can deliver at this point. I don't think it's practically executable. I do think that we could, if that was the council's request and position, create a hybrid meeting that added an outside area to the school facility. And I'll defer a little bit to Sam on how that actually gets pulled together. But again, I don't believe it could be entirely outside. But I think we could put together a hybrid. I'm concerned about the weather delays that might be necessary if you had an all outside meeting also. But I guess I would urge you not to go back to square one. That doesn't seem, it doesn't seem practical, and I don't believe we can come up with too many suggestions that we haven't already worked through and either tried to build into the plan or have decided aren't practical in the long run.
The logistical issues of an outside meeting, as Amy pointed out, are really formidable. And a combination meeting of inside and outside, my fear is that we're going to be faced with a group of people, and we're going to have to deal with an abundance of requests to sit outside, and no one will want to sit inside. And so you're essentially going to have an entirely outside meeting, whether you have an inside space available or not. Unless, I guess, if it's pouring rain, then maybe it's easier to convince people to come inside. But I'm trying to imagine how we say to people, no, I'm sorry, you have to sit inside. We have the outside set up for overflow, but you have to sit inside until the inside is full, and then you can go outside. I just don't understand, with a very grave concern that a lot of people have about being inside. I don't have a rabbit to pull out of my hat on this one.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Sven, go ahead.
100% with you. I don't think it should be outside, Amy and Sam. I do think a hybrid, and I like square 5 or whatever it is, Amy, that we keep it at the school, and maybe there's some form, Sam, of pre-registering or talk. I'm thinking of senior citizens that have immune issues or have had operations or have had different things that are sort of on the I don't want to say the extreme edge, but on the more vulnerable or younger. I mean, any age. And I guess I don't want to feel like coming to the financial town meeting is a risk that is extreme. So maybe there's we register, or even, I don't know, the medical center gives some way. And I'm really talking about a small group, I think a relatively small group. This isn't about, do I prefer the yellow room or the red room? This is about health health concerns, excuse me. So it was just my idea, and hopefully we can work it out so that everybody feels as comfortable as possible in a very weird way.
Amy Lewis, Land.
And to that end, Sven, I think our primary goal, our first goal, is to make sure that everybody at that meeting, not just the ones who may be outside, are as comfortable and as safe as possible. Hence the masks, the sanitizing, the setting up this week so that anything that is touched in the setup has been sitting and resting and decontaminating, if you will, over several days. Packets are out in advance again so that they've been sitting and resting and available for people, and making sure that that distance is maintained by everyone who attends, I think will benefit the entire group that chooses to attend, and that should be our first priority, with perhaps some additional accommodation for those who are particularly compromised. But setting that stage and that tone for everyone who does show up, I think should be our first goal.
I agree. Thank you, Amy. Further discussion? How about the time factor? We had talked about the possibility.
Well, excuse me, it's Martha.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Martha.
So are we definitively inside now?
I think we are with some, I think we are inside.
This is a matter, just purely as a matter of, it's totally impractical to do a hybrid. Is that what we're hearing?
I think so, unless someone says no. I mean, any other ideas?
No, I don't disagree with that. I just wanted to clarify and be sure where we're going.
Okay. So we had talked about the time. There was some discussion about whether or not we were going to change the time, but personally, I think 7 o'clock starting time is the best. Does anyone want to chime in on that?
I agree with you,
Agree.
Ken. 7 o'clock.
Anyone have any different thoughts? Okay. So I think those are the two issues we had to clarify in order to go forward with the warrant, or they not? Molly?
Yes,
Great, thank you.
Amy may have some other issues on the warrant.
Amy, go ahead.
I don't have any other issues. We had made a change last week to the water numbers, but otherwise everything stands as was originally presented.
Okay. So the warrant, the draft of the warrant we have in front of us does list the school as a location for the meeting, and it does list 7 p.m. As the time of starting the meeting. So I'll make a motion to approve the warrant for the financial town meeting on July 27th as drafted.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Chris?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
Ben?
I,
Martha?
Aye.
I approve. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Sam, for the work, and hopefully we can make it as safe as possible for everyone. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on a proposed amendments to the New Shoreham General Ordinances, Chapter 8, Licenses and Business Regulations. Article 7, Motor Vehicles for Hire, Section 161, Commission on Motor Vehicles for Hire. Section 166, License Requirements for Drivers. Section 170, Suspension fines of taxi, limousine, or charter bus licenses. And Section 171, Revocation of License, Hearing, and Section 172, Penalties for Violation. I'll open the public hearing on these amendments. We do have a memo from the Commission on Motor Vehicles for Hire, basically describing the changes that they proposed and the reasons for them. I know we have Vin McAloon joining us this evening from the Motor Vehicles for Hire Commission. Does anyone have any questions or concerns from the council on this? Anyone? Bill McComb?
Yeah, I just had a question. I don't have the sheet with me. What are the penalties? Strictly a fine for the violation of them?
Hold on, Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, the proposed changes read, in addition to the provisions in this article, the regulations regarding suspension and revocation of license, any person found guilty of violating any provision of the article and or the regulations shall be liable for fines in accordance with the amounts established by the regulations. Each day of violation shall constitute a separate offense. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Andre, take over for a minute, please.
Yeah, you got it. What was the question there, Bill?
I had just asked what Ken had answered it, if it was only a fine for a violation. And that was my understanding that, he answered it was only a fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your input, Bill. Vinnie McAloon, do you want to speak to this, or I know you're on the line here?
Vin, you're unmuted now.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Vin, thanks for joining us. Just wondering if you have
Okay.
any comment.
The reason these were put in, these were actually, many of these haven't been changed. There's a few new paragraphs in here, but these proposed amendments, which are actually already on the books in one form or another, have been presented to our town lawyer, who has put it in the proper language, or legalese, if you want to use that word. So they'll have a chance of standing up in court. And as far as concerns over fines, it's only if cabs are not being out on the road enough. After, we have a limit, a minimum time when they're supposed to be on the road during the summertime. It's all pointed out in this thing pretty clearly. But there aren't very many changes to this, and they're all pretty basic.
Right. Okay.
Ken, we have Vin McAloon is unmuted on the line.
So I should
Yes,
go
Ken,
on?
Vin, is that you on the line?
Yes, it is.
Is
Oh,
that
I
your-
finally came through. I could see you for a minute.
do you have any comments?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, is that your phone ringing in the background, Vin?
Don't think so, but maybe it is.
Vin, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm on. I have no idea why this is going this way. Sorry, guys.
All right.
Okay, what can I do? I don't know what your question is at this point.
So,
I think you answered it, Ken. I know you're back, and I just want to, I'll turn it back over to you. But Vinny just went through.
Okay.
I think we're good. Vinny just spoke to the ordinance, and that's it.
All right. There really aren't.
sorry about that. I'm back. Other comments or questions? Difficulties here. Bear with us, please.
Yes, it was.
All right. So any other questions or comments on the ordinance? Andre, did you go through any of the other points?
Vinny just explained the ordinance, in its, in its entirety. I think we're good to go if we don't have any questions from anybody else.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second, if nobody else wants.
What? Did you say second? Okay, then I guess I made a motion. Fine. So motion is made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Recused.
Okay, and I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries four affirmative, one recusal. I'll make a motion to approve the amendments to the New Storm Denver ordinances, Chapter 8, licenses and business regulations, Article 7, motor vehicles for hire, sections as presented.
Second.
Second, Chris. Further discussion? All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Martha?
Recused.
Martha recuses. Motion carries, 4 affirmative, 1 recusal. Thank you. Thank you, Vin, for the work that the Motor Vehicle for Hire Commission did in putting this forward. Next item on the agenda will be a public hearing on proposed amendments. I'll open the public hearing on proposed amendments to the Nishoram zoning ordinance, section 202A, definition of building height, requiring that within special flood hazard areas, building height be measured from the base flood elevation. The local zoning amendment to the definition of building height is required in order for the town to be consistent with state law. As you may recall, we had, I believe we had a public meeting on this, a discussion on this before we set it for public hearing. We do have a memo, an explanation from the planning board chair that was dated February 12th, 2020. And any questions or comments from the council?
I have none.
Ben?
Is Allison or anybody on the phone just to
Yes,
highlights briefly?
yep, Allison Rang, Town Planner. I'm here to walk you through the amendment if you'd like.
Sure, thank you.
So this first item is a proposed amendment to section 202, the definition section of the zoning ordinance. And this basically what it does is that within special flood hazard areas, building height will now be measured from base flood elevation rather than existing average grade, which it is now. So the reason this amendment came about is that during the 2018 state legislative session, a bill was enacted that amended the definition, and this law became effective March 1st of 2019. So currently the town's definition is not consistent with state law. The proposal before you is some reworking of the definition, some relocating of the text, but overall just only policy change here is the requirement that structures be measured from base flood elevation. So some background, base flood elevation, that's the regulatory requirement for the amount of a structure to be elevated for flood proofing. And this is something that this figure appears on the FEMA firm maps. It's the 100-year flood. So you may recall, it wasn't too long ago, the town had amended the definition of building height, and that was again related to a state law change. So currently, people are allowed up to 5 feet of freeboard to be excluded from building height calculation within that special hazard zone. So this expands upon that. So if I could give an example scenario to help understand how this state law, would work and how it could impact things. So within a zoning district that has a 35-foot maximum building height, an applicant wants to come in and build a home within the special flood hazard zone, and it has a base flood elevation of 11 feet. The home site is located at 9 feet above sea level rise. So that's the ground. So right now, according to building code, that structure has to be elevated to what's called the design flood elevation. So it's the 11 minus the 2, the 2 feet, the distance from ground to that 11 feet of BFE plus 1 foot of freeboard. So the structure needs to be elevated 3 feet. So that 3 feet is what now the state is saying cannot be calculated in the building height structure, maximum building height. And then in addition, there's that optional 4 foot of freeboard they may choose to utilize. So there's a potential that the structure would be 42 feet tall and still meet 35-foot maximum building height. So to say it more simply, the amount the structure is elevated no longer can be counted towards the calculation of the building's height within, we're just talking about within flood zones, special flood hazard areas. So it becomes more a measure of like the finished space, the living area of the structure. I don't know if you recall back in 2018, the town council had passed a resolution in opposition to this, and along with other municipalities, there was some concern, you know, that this could obviously lead to taller structures along the coast, a walling off the coastline. I do believe there's probably less of a concern on Block Island compared to some other municipalities due to the amount of conservation land, the geography of the island, the land use regulations, you know, having lower density, where some communities in Rhode Island have that, you know, small lot sizes along the coast. So there would be more about that walling off of the coastline concern. But the following agenda item, you know, we can pause and continue on to that later, that presents, you know, the planning board's proposal for an optional amendment that could help address any concerns, you know, following implementation or enaction of this amendment. So to try to mitigate any potential negative impacts to this change in how building height is calculated in the special flood hazard areas. So I'll pause there. You know, hopefully that explains the first agenda item before you'll be further discussion of the optional amendments.
Okay, thank you, Allison. So that being said, any questions along those lines with this ordinance change or amendment? Anybody?
Ken, I don't have any at this time.
Okay.
I have one.
Martha, go ahead.
I mentioned this previously. There's a chart both, and I'm not sure how this fits. I'm having a hard time following this. This is the percentage allowable accessory structure maximum height using rounded percentages. And we end up with 16.1 and 19.8 and 18.4 feet, which just seems silly and difficult to work with. And aside from my basic philosophical opposition to this entire thing, why do we have these rounded up but still using 1 decimal point? Why isn't it simply rounded to a whole number?
So Martha, I know the table you're talking about. So that's actually within the next agenda item, the optional proposed amendments. So that's part of that package.
Okay.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be like anything that would be required for state law. That's not at all anything the town needs to follow through with. That's something that the town can consider implementing, because this first amendment could potentially lead to higher, taller structures in the special flood hazard areas. The town could then implement the next package of amendments that would counteract that in some way by reducing the maximum building height of main structures and accessory structures. And I can get into a little bit about that explanation as to why that was rounded percentages.
Okay, Martha?
Yeah. I'm baffled by this. It's too many words.
You know, unfortunately, it's something that came down from the state. It's not something that, you know, the planning board, not something we wanted to have to deal with. It's not something, you know, we just have to address it because we currently have, you know, the town may want to make sure that you're consistent with state law. So that's the only reason that we had to address this. And of course, like I said, we didn't necessarily support this change. So the planning board tried to come up with a solution to counteract the change. You know, it may not be perfect solution, but it's, you know, we took a lot of time going through some options, and so, you know, happy to have a discussion and some comments, feedback, you know, if there's a way to improve that solution, but that's where we are today. We just had to bring it forward to the council just to make sure you're aware that that's the state law change and the zoning ordinance is no longer in compliance.
Ben Reesum?
Allison, thanks for the explanation, and thanks to everybody on the planning board to have made this the best it can be. I know we need to follow the state regs, and I think you guys have done a nice job of trying to minimize the impact. To be very honest, I'll vote for it because it's the best the planning board can do and the best we can do. But I just don't agree with building a house in the flood areas and being able to go up higher just because you have more money and because you're richer. So that said, I'll support it at the end, but I don't like this whole thing.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Andre?
No, I'm good, Ken. Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry, your box keeps lighting up on me down there. All right, any comments or questions from anyone else listening or wanting to make comment?
I have another question.
Martha, go ahead.
Martha,
Yep.
It's very hard to tell from these maps. There's not really a whole lot of area that's impacted on this that isn't already built up, is there?
That's correct. There's not a whole lot of flood zones on Block Island. I mean, around the ponds and the coastline, a lot of that, as part of the GIS analysis, does get into where there was potential for just to see the development. And yeah, it's not a whole lot of area.
I mean, for example, the town owns the entire East Beach, and that's just off the table completely.
Yeah, just as an example, 41% of the land within special flood hazard areas is conserved already.
Conserved or belongs to the town?
Conserved land cannot be developed under conservation
That's not my
easement
question. I said, are you talking about conserved land, or are you talking about the beach that belongs to the town?
Well, I'm talking about this amendment impacts special flood hazard areas, the flood zones on Block Island. So as an example, over 40% of that land is conserved. So this amendment wouldn't impact that because you're not going to see development in that 21%.
Yes, my question was specific to the East Beach. Thank you.
Well, anything along the coastline that if it's within 100 feet, if it's under CRMC jurisdiction, you know, you're not going to be able to build there.
Any other questions or comments?
Ken, Bill Landry here.
Bill Landry, go ahead. Good evening.
Just to add a little perspective on this. The impetus on this was from the builders, and it had to do with calculating height from mean average grade of the land. And their position was that if you have to put a building up on pilings and have to observe a height based on the mean average grade of the land, that distance covered by the pilings really makes for a very different type of structure. So what the legislature did was to require the height to be measured from the base flood elevation, and they required that an extra 5 feet of freeboard, which is area above that base flood elevation, it's kind of free height, if you will, has to be the base point, base flood elevation plus 5 feet. And then the municipality's height ordinance can kick in at that point. And we had no choice but to make that our way to define height. But we did have a choice as to whether we wanted to keep the same height limitations, the actual height distance limitations once you get to that base point. And some other municipalities did that well. They didn't do it in a way that's probably going to be safe from court challenges pending out there. Instead of keeping that definition that the state required and then using their flexibility to change their height limitations in a way that doesn't defeat that definition, they would say, well, you start calculating from the base flood elevation, and then whatever you get with has to be reduced by whatever you'd have to reduce it by to get it to the point where we used to measure from mean average grade. And that's really offensive to that definition and defeats the state definition. So what the planning board chose to do, and this is why it looks a little complicated, they observed that new state statute as to where the starting point for the measurement is, and then they reduced the height limitations in each of the zones, not in a way that was even affected in any way by the state legislation. They basically reduced the height limitation by an approximation of what the difference would be if the calculation had been done from mean average grade, thinking that it's about roughly 7 feet or height that was provided for. So what you have is your maximum principal dwelling heights being reduced by 7 feet in each of the different zones. And that's a very defensible thing because the state didn't tell you how high you had to permit or could permit above that baseline. So that's why you've got the height limitations in the dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance being modified. And then the point Martha was addressing was how the planning board handled accessory structures, because those also, the base height has to be measured from the same starting point, but members of the planning board didn't want to see the proportionality that accessory structures have now to principal structures changed by some distorted result comes from this new methodology. So they basically, they added those percentages that Martha has made reference to try to look at what they define the maximum height for accessory structures as a percentage of the height of the principal structure. And that percentage was driven by a calculation of what it would take to keep the same proportionality of accessory structures to principal structures as we have now. So at the end of the day, I think that what you've got here is a legal, defensible way of keeping things substantially the way they are right now.
Thank you, Bill. But you're talking about a combination of this proposed ordinance change plus the next one we're going to talk about.
That's correct. I am out over my skis, but I think it'll be easier for the board to consider that piece with that background.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any further questions or comments on this for anyone?
No, I appreciate Bill and Allison giving that definition with both. I appreciate that. I understand it a lot more now. Thank you.
Okay, Andre, thanks. Hearing no further comments, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this amendment.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries to close the public hearing. I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to New Shoreham zoning ordinance section 202A, definition of building height as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. Further comments? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is, as we've discussed, is the public hearing on. I'll open a public hearing on proposed amendments in the zoning ordinance, Article 3, zoning district regulations, dimensional standards, and New Shoreham General Ordinances, Chapter 11, natural resource protection, flood ordinance. There again, we've had the discussion pretty much on this. Does anyone have any questions or anything further they'd like to add about on this, or have any questions specifically for Allison or Bill? Anyone? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative also. Motion carries unanimously. To close the public hearing, I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed amendments to the New Shoreham zoning ordinance, Article 3, zoning district and regulations as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Andre. Second by Andre. Further discussion? All those in favor, Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative also. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Allison, and thank you to the planning board for the work done on this, and it's a good accomplishment. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda, which I just put in the folder and put away, so give me a second to pull it back out. Next item on the agenda is discuss and act on a town council support for the broadband initiative in the upcoming financial town meeting warrant. Sven, did you want to start a discussion on this?
I'm trusting that everybody got a copy of a resolution that I wrote. To be very frank, Amy had significant input, as did Martha and Molly. In essence, as you can see from the whereases and the therefore be it resolved that the New Shoreham Town Council supports the island-wide broadband network, including the financing, engineering, construction, equipment, deployment, and initial operation of a municipal broadband network for Block Island. My goal in moving this resolution forward is to be clear of the town council's support for the broadband committee and the initiative that will be before the voters at the FTM. I can explain anything, but I think it's very self-explanatory. I hope so.
It's self-explanatory. I think it'd be good if you wouldn't mind reading it.
Oh, do you want me to read the whole thing? Okay. New Shoreham Town Council resolution in support of the island-wide broadband network, July 15th. Whereas access to the high-quality broadband is critical to the viability of a year-round community as we move into the 21st century, as has been underscored during the COVID-19 pandemic into which we were thrown earlier this year. And whereas the utilization is anticipated to be indeed broad, ranging from students to seniors, from distance learning to family communications, from commercial to civic, from medical necessity to the more mundane. And whereas the town of New Shoreham has applied for up to $3.2 million in federal funding scheduled for award in October 2020 that will help reduce the burden and represents a significant offset to project costs. And Whereas the town issued an RFP for the island-wide network that established capability, reliability, and customer experience standards that left the choice of technology to proposing vendors, and upon review of a comprehensive report of a well-established and long-working group, the town council has forwarded to the July 27, 2020 financial town meeting an item of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $8 million to finance, engineering, construction, equipping, deployment, and initial operation of a municipal broadband network for Block Island. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of New Shore, therefore, be it resolved that the New Shoreham Town Council supports the island-wide broadband network, including the financing, engineering, construction, equipping, deployment, and initial operation of a municipal broadband network for Block Island. And further, be it resolved, we decree that this resolution be made part of the permanent record of the town. Witness our hands and seal this 15th day of July 2020. But July 2020. That's it.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on the council? Chris?
I'm actually looking for an email that was sent to us just to give me a second, just to clarify some of the things that have been said in various forms about, and Amy hopefully can add to this, but there's a lot of other there's been a lot of discussions about how this is antiquated or this isn't long-term, or, I mean, use whatever word you want. There's a number of different technologies out there that have been discussed since we started this a number of years ago, that this entire group has looked at it, that involve LEO satellite and other potential technologies via different companies like SpaceX, Apple. There was a 5G discussion, none of which have come to, I think it's important to note that none of which have come to fruition or have been identified as something that is reliable or can perform like the proposal that we have right now. And I can't stress that enough, is there's a lot of information out there that has been explored by this group ad nauseum and in depth. And this is the best scenario, I think, for this island. And they've done a lot of work to get us to this point. So I just want to say that what we have, in light of all the other discussions and all the other comments made about different technologies, that have been, everything's been thoroughly researched, and this is, at the end of the day, the best direction for this town to take, and I wholeheartedly believe it is. And I want to just acknowledge that work that was done, and looking into all the other things that were offered or were suggested. That work has been done, so we're headed in the right direction, I think, and I would hope that everybody would vote to approve this warrant in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Chris. You mentioned Amy's name, and after saying that, I'll just do it not, I think, to agree with you, right, Amy?
You broke up a little on me, Ken. I couldn't quite hear that.
That's okay. I just pointed out that Chris he started off as a question, but I think he made a very good point that about everything that was accomplished in the course of getting to this point. Is that yes?
Okay, well, we have a very comprehensive document prepared by Amy. I think that's what Chris and I are both trying to find right now.
Okay.
Martha, I think that's on Tuesday. That was sent. If you're looking in your emails.
Tuesday is yesterday, right?
It is, yeah.
That's not a joke. Oh, I'm sure it's nested in something. I hate the way this works. I'll have to look later. But is that something that we have printed separately? Does anyone know? Amy's 54 point I think it was 54 points. Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Is that something that's available? I just don't know where that is. Besides,
Amy, you confirm that the,
does. Oh, I got it. Hang on. No, I don't.
Amy,
Yeah, Amy's. I've got it.
Amy, maybe you can explain what Martha is referencing, because I think it's an incredibly good document that everybody should see if they need.
Amy, if you'd like, you go ahead, but Michelle's also raising her hand, Michelle Spiro. So.
Sure. I will let Michelle pick it up then, since she is much more versed in the technology, but that doesn't exist for public consumption now, but we will put it together in a way that it can be shared more clearly. I think Chris represented a lot of those points, which is the committee that came before the broadband committee did a lot of work over several years to make sure that we had exhausted all possible available technologies for Block Island, and that we were in fact delivering the most appropriate solution that was also most cost effective for our long-term dollars. And we think that what's being presented to the voters on the 27th represents that. We've tried to stay abreast of emerging technologies, and the ones that are still emerging are that they are somewhat unproven and somewhat untested. And it's a little early to be saying that those are our savior. Fiber is known, it is reliable, it is long-term, and I think all of those factors play into why that's the solution in front of you today. Michelle, do you want to add to that at all?
Well, I would say that both you and Chris expressed that quite well. I think what I would add is, and you said this, Amy, that we continue to follow all of the emerging technologies, efforts like the SpaceX low orbit satellite effort, as well as Apple's new secret initiative. And while they show some promise for the future, even the FCC questions whether or not they can achieve the kinds of performance in terms of lowering the latency of what satellite is known for, the buffering, the delay, all that we see with satellite technology. And they are, I would say, a minimum of 5 years away from even being launched in a commercial way, and that doesn't mean that they would necessarily be available geographically for Block Island at that time. The low orbit satellite does require radio frequencies be available for that technology to work, and we do have some limitations with respect to frequency availability around Block Island. So there are a lot of challenges, and I think I would leave it at that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions?
Yeah, Ken Andre here. May I?
Sure, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I agree with what Chris has said. I agree with everything that everybody said here this evening, and I think it's also important to note that this possible $2.3 million funding that we are about to engage in is basically, and I could be wrong, I need to be corrected if I am, but it's for a shovel-ready project, and I think our project as it is now, and as to what Chris, everybody had said, a group has worked on this for so long, and I wouldn't want to start looking in other directions because I see no need to, because of the work the group has done, and I just think if we really want to look down that road, we could potentially be forfeiting the chance at at those monies for unproven projects that are not really what we're looking at right now. So I support the resolution. I support moving forward with this. I think it's time, and I'm excited for it.
Thank you, Andre. Sven Reeson?
No, I'm good. I'd love to get a vote on the resolution.
All right.
Make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Motion by Chris,
Second.
seconded by Sven to approve the resolution in support of the island-wide broadband network. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion is unanimous. Thank you for getting that together, Sven, and thank you, Michelle and Amy, for your input on that and all the hard work done with Sam Bird also and the rest of the committee, the broadband committee. We certainly appreciate it, and it's very promising for the near future for broadband development on the island and improvement. We know there's a vast area that room for improvement. So, and as COVID-19 has showed us, we very much need it. So we appreciate all your work. Thank you. Next item on the agenda was to receive a report from Chief Carlone on July 4th holiday weekend, but I did receive a text message from the chief that he is unavoidably detained at this time and will be unable to participate. I don't know, Jim, did you want to have any comments? Do you have any comments for us?
He texted me too, said he would provide a written report for the council. I'm sure he would make himself available for a future meeting.
Okay, yeah, it must be something unavoidable because I know he is planning to be here tonight with us. Does anyone have any comments or questions at this point on this item? Okay. If not, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which will be a proposal from the Black Island Land Trust regarding the Hodge stewardship and the kiosk update and the proposal. Anyone joining us tonight from the Land Trust? I think I see Barbara McMullen.
I'm here, Barbara McClellan.
Good evening, Barbara.
Hi.
We do have a letter dated June 24th from the Land Trust, the Black Island Land Trust, about this issue. Did you want to basically give it to us in a verbal form, Barbara?
Sure. The Hodge property is owned by the four groups: the town, the Land Trust, Black Island Conservancy, and the Nature Conservancy. And we have a management committee that meets annually to make decisions about the property. We decided this year to install a new kiosk, and the estimated cost for that was $2,000 or $500 per entity. The kiosk has been installed, and by the way, the town road crew did a great job getting it installed. It looks terrific. But the cost of it was higher than we expected it to be. And so recognizing that we, the town, are in a tight budget environment right now, at our last meeting when we discussed this, we decided to make a proposal that the Land Trust pay the town's share of that kiosk, but that we ask the town to have the road crew fix the potholes that are in the parking lot there.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Is that Andre?
That's Andre, yeah.
Sven Reeson, go ahead.
Quid pro quo, sounds like a good deal.
Jim Kern, do you have any problem with that?
I do not.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to, in light of the generous offer from the Black Island Land Trust, to direct the town manager to have the potholes repaired at the entrance to the Hodge property.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I Vote in the affirmative also, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Barbara, for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank the Land Trust for the offer.
I will.
Next item on the agenda is a request from the Charter Review Commission. Is anyone joining us tonight from the Charter Review Commission? Up, Keith Stover's on, I believe. Keith, you there? Anyone else from the Charter Review Commission joining us?
Come on.
There you go. Keith, you there now?
Can you hear? Sorry. Yeah, it's having a hard time unmuting.
That's okay.
Yeah, this is a really simple request. The committee has, as you know, spent hours and days on this and would like to work with council with specific experience on charter. There, believe it or not, are actually lawyers around the state who have this as an area of expertise, and we'd like the opportunity to meet with them and choose an appropriate lawyer to do our drafting.
Actually, Councilor Marola has experience with the charter work. Catherine, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I see. Hold on a sec. Chris Willie.
Yes.
I see your hand. Hold on, Keith. Chris, go ahead.
I support the request because it's coming unanimously from the entire Charter Review Committee. And no offense to Ms. Marola, who's been our attorney for a number of years, I don't think a second set of eyes on our charter from a legal perspective would hurt a thing. I've sat on the Charter Review Committee 10 years ago. We did a lot of work, not a lot changed. This group did a lot of work. I have no idea what has changed, but if that's the request, I don't think it's unreasonable. They're all volunteers. They came to this conclusion themselves. And I don't think it's a big deal to ask somebody that is an expert in this to take a look at it. It's not going to hurt a thing. I think it's actually a good thing. And this isn't anything negative towards Kathy, because I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities to do this. So I would like to see it happen personally.
Thank you, Chris. Other comments or questions? Keith, did you want to add something?
No, I agree with Chris. It may end up being Kathy. We just want to talk to some lawyers and find someone who we think fits the bill here.
Do we have an estimate of how many hours you're thinking this is going to involve, or a budget?
You know, our draft is actually in pretty good shape, I think. I don't think it's going to be a lot of hours. But you know, we were asked to be pretty bold and direct. So there are some things around transparency and other issues that we want to make sure we're not sort of touching any third rails in what we've drafted. But I don't expect it to be a really lengthy or expensive engagement.
Okay. Sven Reeson?
I was just going to ask if there's a budget estimate, only so Amy knows, and timing, but it sort of ties in with Ken's comment. Thank you.
Right.
We would certainly get an estimate.
Chris Willie?
Is an estimate kind of a moot, because whether it's Kathy or somebody else, it's still going to be the same money. I mean, if we ask Kathy to do it, we're still spending money. If we ask someone else to do it, we're still spending money. So I'm kind of confused as to what the dollar amount has any relevancy in.
Just trying to get an idea before we dive into it. That's all. Wasn't any further questions or comments?
I make a motion to approve.
To approve what?
Second.
Can you be more specific, please?
Sure. I make a motion to approve the request by the Charter Review Committee to find legal support in the revisions and recommendations to be made to the town council.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Sven, seconded by Chris. Any further discussion or questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with it, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And there's more.
Next item on the agenda is a request for a resolution in support of House Bill 8102. Molly, did you say this wasn't ready for prime time?
That's right, Ken. The bill went to committee, House Judiciary, and some changes were made in committee. So I'd like to hold off until there's a more stable situation with this bill.
Okay, and this was in reference to emergency balloting? Is that correct?
That's right. It's a bill that I support strongly. It would allow the town to use the tested technology that we use at the polls for emergency balloting. Instead of filling out a couple of envelopes and a form, voters could actually come to and then mailing the ballot to Providence, fighting the weather and the mail in some cases. Voters could actually cast a ballot at town hall, and it streamlines the process. So the balloting process here would be quick. And the ballots would be tabulated on election night electronically. If, for instance, a voter spoiled a ballot, they would know right away. The voting machine would reject it, and they'd have the option of filling out another ballot instead of putting that spoiled ballot in the mail. So I see it as a win-win, but I want to wait for the bill to be a little bit more gelled before I present you with a resolution for it.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Am I back?
Martha, go ahead.
You are.
Am I back?
You're back, Martha.
Oh, I just wanted to be sure I was back. I hit the wrong key, sorry. That was all. I just wanted to be sure I was here.
Okay.
Got you back.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so we won't take any action on this then, this evening. Next item on the agenda, as we've had in past meetings, is to, just in case we needed it, was to discuss an act on possible amendment to the emergency ordinance, second of the town of New Shoreham, adopted May 27th, 2020, pertaining to communal housing and other issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. Anyone have any comments or questions on this evening? All right, hearing none. Anyone? Yeah, Chris, go ahead. Chris Willing.
Is there a way to establish whether or not there are going to be any discussion about this before the meeting, in advance of the meeting, perhaps, so we don't have to have Kathy standing by just for this item, or, you know?
Yeah, we can.
I mean, I understand. I don't know whose request it was to keep it on. I understand the thought process behind it, but I mean, this is the third meeting that we've had with this on the agenda. We haven't had any discussion, so.
Yeah, I think unless anyone has any objection, I think we'll just we won't repeat the idea of putting it on unless there's some specific item that's been brought up to be able to deal with. So.
Is Martha?
Go ahead, Martha.
I would rather we keep it on and let everybody know a certain amount ahead of time that there isn't anything to be brought up, because otherwise we get into the whole advertising ahead of time. Who knows what's going to happen, and something can come up at relatively short notice, which is why I wanted it in the first place. I hadn't thought through the implications of that And I think that is a very good idea to, have everybody sign in ahead of time if they have anything. Right?
Okay.
Given number of hours ahead of time.
Right. All right. Andre, do you have something? Sorry.
No, but the next item with the whole mask thing, I don't know if I have a couple questions about that and how the outreach is going and if anything's needed, but I can,
Well, let's
we can
jump
wait.
let's jump right down to it then. Next item on the agenda is discuss and act on amendment to the emergency ordinance of Town of Shoreham adopted June 24th, 2020 masks pertaining to COVID-19 pandemic. Andre?
Yeah, I mean, obviously leave this on the agenda. I agree with Martha, both items. I don't know if we can consolidate them both or something, or leave them both. But yeah, I agree with what Martha said, is if something comes up, we should have them so we don't have to wait. But masks obviously work. We've had a good response to that right now, but I'm just wondering, I know we were running low on them, and I'm just wondering if we've been able to be replenished with them, and the outreach with them, how's that all going? Do we need to tweak any of that? I don't know. I guess that would be a question for Sven, because Sven was procuring masks earlier.
I see his hand raised. Go ahead, Sven.
So Andre, great question. Very briefly, the medical center was able to get some masks, and so the CSOs have them. I did give a rough forecast to Kira and Dr. Warcup, and they're trying to figure out, how they can do that. But also Bill McComb and Peter Gemp and the EMA group will get involved if needed. So right now we're fine on masks. I think the one thing that we want a little bit of not change, but reinforcing is when the CSOs have the masks, they are handing them out and making sure that people know that they need to wear masks, what the rules are here, and both the town as well as the executive order from the governor, versus just having masks out in a box and people take them, because that's not efficient. So there's been a bit of a tweak, and the CSOs have them in their hand, or they're instructed to have them in their hand, to offer them and to let people know about the masks, and inform and educate and make people aware. So right now we have enough masks, and I'll let everybody know if there's a real issue, but the medical center has been great. And my hope is that we do not have to pay for them. And based on everything I'm hearing from the governor's office, et cetera, we should be able to get enough masks.
Great.
Andre, go ahead.
No, Ken, we were talking about this at the business meeting, with the businesses on Monday, just that there's sometimes when the interstate boat comes in and the CSOs and officers are passing out the masks down there with the table, which I, think is a wonderful initiative. The New London boat high speed comes in, and on the other end of the parking lot, there's hundreds of people getting off of that boat. And there's nobody there to do the same. So I don't know how often that happens. But I'm just wondering, we've had people offer to volunteer to pass out masks. So I'm wondering if we need to bolster that effort, on the other side of the parking lot when that does happen. I'm just, wondering about the council's thoughts on that, because, it did come up, Monday with the businesses.
Right. The other thing I'll mention is that I was down there the other day, and several times I've been down there, and the sign has been illuminated, announcing the mask ordinance as you walk off the ferry. But the other day I was down there, it was not. And it's up to the CSOs and the police department to turn it on. And occasionally they forget, or they get busy. So if you should happen to witness it not illuminated, you just let the dispatch know, and they can have the CSOs turn it on if they've forgotten to do it on that particular day. Bill McComb, I see your hand up. Bill, you there? Bill, you're not.
Sorry, Ken. Yeah. in fairness, that sign had been taken down a couple of days because of the wind. It doesn't do well whether it was shaking back and forth. So weather condition affects it also. One thing I wanted to add also, Sven had reached out about the masks also. We procured another 1,000 that we're going over to the chamber, and Cindy and has been good about, she's using those for some of the businesses also, and about getting some of those to the CSOs also. Including the police department too. So I think Sven's request has worked out pretty well.
Bill, one of the questions that came up at the meeting on Monday was if the folks are required to have a mask when they get on the ferry, why are they walking off without masks on Block Island?
Yeah, actually, they're not walking off. Excuse me, it's not a matter of them walking off without masks. People get off the boat, they'll walk up and tell them they may take it down. So I think there's been a little bit of, but not to get too into the weeds in respect to Sven and this, but we've kind of Sven, I know the chief and the medical center, kind of a little bit of shift where we started off a few weeks ago when the education aspect of handing them out and so forth, like out of a box. I think the shift a little bit here has been more of the CSOs interacting with those people into the town area. And if someone doesn't have one, so they have them available to be able to distribute out. The majority of people, they're not getting on the boat without a mask. So they definitely have one where they're coming on off. But I think with the CSOs, as they're going up and down Front Street and they're interacting with people, some of these people didn't just get off the boat. It's people that have either been here, they've been on private boats or whatever it might be. So I think the shift a little bit was to make sure that they had them available as one component of their education component. Would you agree with that, Sven?
Yeah, I think if I can, Ken, I think it's a blend. Before we were all at the ferry and the folks, and appropriately the folks are saying, well, the issue is as much on Water Street. And I think that we've learned two things. One is Bill's comment, which is Water Street is different than the ferry. So the CSOs had the table set up, like Andre said, but then they also walk, especially when the ferries aren't coming in. The second realization was we do it, in my opinion, I think the island is doing a yeoman's job when people are coming onto the island. They know about it. The ferries said things, signage, etc. But in the afternoon, after they've been on the beach and they're sweaty or they've been walking or whatever, sort of that 3 o'clock on, things definitely are not as positive. And so I think that has been an ongoing discussion. I will refer to Ken's earlier comment. What I'm reading about Narragansett and many of the other beaches and beach communities is much more extreme. I will say that the businesses I've talked to, many say that there's a high compliance rate. And when people walk in without a mask and they're offered one, they immediately take it. Versus ice cream shops in Wakefield that finally closed because people were pretty abusive. So I think businesses have had pretty good experience with compliance of people. I think the afternoon's been the issue, and that's where the CSO is walking. If the council wants the CSOs, and I will gladly do it, to do a little bit of a volunteer so we can do more coverage, then we can arrange that. And I guess I look for the council's guidance. The issue of volunteering is, and I'm going to be very blunt, this is about requesting, educating, and making people aware. It's sort of not getting into a police force on masks. And so we just have to make sure that the training is there so that any volunteers are appropriate, and that they understand the goal. But I'll take the guidance from the council if they want.
Jim Kern?
So a few things. We can have the CSOs move over towards the new London Ferry Landing too. The other feedback I've started to get is masks being taken. I really don't think there's anybody in Rhode Island or showing up on Block Island that doesn't know they're supposed to have a mask. But I also know that there are times where all of us forget our masks, and I think the education approach has been a good one and successful. But I think we may be transitioning into a place where we want to make more of an impact with respect to making sure people wear the masks that we take. Is I am starting to get some feedback on masks being just not worn and thrown on the ground. Not our biggest concern. We still want to continue with trying to make it available. I would be very careful. Sven and I have talked about this back from the beginning when he did it, having the right people do the volunteer interaction, because there are actually some really grim examples of interactions around the country between people over masks. And Sven referred to one in Wakefield where a gentleman who runs a really good business had to close, and ice cream seems to be an especially difficult business for this for some reason. But we want to be real careful not setting our volunteers up to get into adversarial interactions with people. And just continue to try to use the availability of masks to create the communication between us and people visiting. And I would agree with what I made. Once you get up off of the shoreline in South County, you have a very high compliance. Once you get down around the shoreline, it's very different. And we out here, that transition happens very quickly, right? As soon as you step off the boat. And businesses generally do very well, and places where I feel like I'm on vacation, even if it's down at the seawall, not actually at the beach, people feel like they're on vacation. So we've driving through today, I thought a better percentage that I see in the other areas down by the shore that I've been in the last 5 or 6 days, and the governor reacted. Thank you.
Andre, could I add something?
Go ahead, Dr. Walkup.
Good evening, everyone. Just some data maybe to continue to invigorate our process that Rhode Island has had an increase in their hospitalizations. Our 7-day average now is about 55 people, which is our highest point since June 19th. And Saturday represented 78 new admissions, or 78 total admissions rather, which was our highest single day since June 12th. So our continued vigilance, I think, is great. We're doing much better than 31 other states that have had a real surge in their hospitalizations. But if I can give some data that may help our CSOs or how we want to plan on who we target to talk with. Right now, there's about a 2% positive rate amongst people that are being tested, but for the 20 to 30-year-old age group, it's greater than 7%. And this particular group is also a group that's starting to have a surge in their COVID-related cases, with the suspicion is they're just not taking the governor's regulations seriously. So if there's a way to help preserve PPE or target our outreach, the 20 to 30-year-old population would be 3 times as likely to have an issue than you would somebody outside of that age group. If that helps keep us a little bit targeted.
Thank you, Doctor. That's valuable input.
Sorry, Andre, I'm back.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Dr. Walkup just had some valuable input about targeting 20, 30-year-olds. And then that's it.
One thing that occurs to me is that, and it was mentioned briefly by Jim, was that as we go along, I don't think our mask wear is going to go away anytime soon. And I think people should be encouraged to not rely on the disposable masks, but rather to use masks that are washable and get several masks that can be changed on a daily basis, because the stuff is starting to pile up on the roads and in the landfills and everything else. So just as we were concerned about plastic bags a couple years ago, I think we should also be concerned about all these disposable masks. So just a comment. Any further comment?
Ken, if I could, people also just shouldn't be throwing things away on the street, regardless of what it is, be it a cigarette butt, a mask, a pineapple. I mean, the bizarre things one sees on the street on Block Island in the summertime.
Right, thank you.
Just don't throw it up. Don't throw it away. What I did have a question. This is an observation from being downtown, not from moving through downtown. The CSOs have the masks at the dock. Is that my understanding? Because I don't see them in town with them.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, they have been at a table pretty much near the chamber, but really at the end of the passenger where the cars come out. So there's a table set up right by the fence there and the gates. They are now starting to walk around with the masks. At least that's the direction, and that'll start happening now, I hope. And with the intent, Martha, of not just giving them out quickly, but rather educating, making people aware if they don't have one on, and then saying, you know, with some of the obvious, I've got a mask in my hand, do you really need one? Versus in the early days, or when we started this, we were pretty much like, would you like a mask? Now it's, you know, there is an ordinance, there is an awareness, and I have one if you really need it. So it's a little bit of a tonal difference so that we can reduce the pollution and the waste and to manage PPE, to Dr. Warkup's comment, for those most needy.
Thank you, Sven. Further comments or questions?
Yeah, may I, Ken?
Go ahead, Andre.
Jim, are you on? Jim Kern?
I am.
Hi, thank you. Monday's meeting with the businesses, you know, there was a lot of discussion and concern about still, you know, maybe some of the police officers not wearing masks. I'm just wondering if you could remind all the municipal employees that, you know, it is the policy of this town for municipal employees to be wearing masks when engaging the public. Like I said, I just want to know if you could, you know, remind them of that, because there was some concern about that. And also, could you speak to, we got a memo from the sewer department today about, you know, because they test for COVID in the sewer. Just wondering if you could explain that document, that a test was taken on July 5th and COVID was detected in the wastewater stream. And I know there was some kind of qualifying, you know, wording in that report about the test methods. I'm just wondering if you could clarify that for me in the council.
Sure. Received a couple days ago the email, which is the latest in a series of tests that the commission has, the sewer operation has been doing at regular periods, testing the effluent in the sewer system for presence of the virus. And this is the first one that they got back July 5th, is the first one that came up positive. The qualification that I was talking about is, I think people can probably appreciate that the science associated with trying to analyze the volume, for lack of a better word, volume of infected or infection in the sewer, in the waste stream, the science of trying to estimate what that represents in terms of number of people that are positive. I think it goes without saying that's not an exact or a well-developed approach or analysis at this point. So they represented in their the firm that's hired to do it, represented that the estimate should be as a beta. It's still in, they called it research and development, still in R&D. So their estimate should be seen as a beta answer. Their estimate was 10 people, the number that that they associated with the positive reading was 10. But as I said, they wanted to be clear. You needed to recognize that their science, particularly as it relates to identifying the number of people, is very much in its infancy.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I know that came and it's, I'd like you to get that, I'd like to get ahead of it before that report comes, There's been some discussion about that, and I appreciate you clarifying that. And I'm sure there'll be more discussion on it.
Any further comments or
It
questions?
was,
Martha, go ahead.
sorry, it was the 4th of July weekend. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, the test was on July 5th, I think. Yes, July 5th.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, like to suggest an amendment to the order of things on the agenda. I'd like to move number 13 to the next item, approval of minutes, because we'll be going into closed session on several of the later items, most of the later items. So with the council permission, I'd like to move approval of minutes to the next item.
Second?
Second by Andre. All's
Yep.
in favor? Aye. Sven?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
Motion carries. So moving on to approval of minutes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 5th, 2019.
Hang on one second, Ken. I'm pulling them up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there was a just a recusal issue. It was the very first. I'm not sure what you mean. It was the very first item on the agenda. It was about taxicabs, and I wasn't listed as recusing.
That was the June 19th. This one is the June 5th.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. We're talking June 5th now?
June 5th.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Martha, June 5th, 2019.
Yeah, I didn't know which was which.
Thank you.
My motion would be to approve.
Yeah, I mean, I can't attest to anything, but I it's a long time ago. Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion or comments?
I
Hearing
mean,
none.
I don't have Ken,
Chris, go ahead.
I mean, this was a year ago.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Like I can barely remember 2 weeks ago. So I'm voting on something I can't remember. I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but this is, this is like this minutes dump that we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 minutes. That's a minutes, man. We got to do better than this.
Understood. At the moment, the item on the agenda is to approve this set of minutes. You can have a discussion at a later date. So all those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Chris?
Nay.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Bizarrely, I do remember this meeting. Thank you.
I vote in favor. Motion carries 4-1. Motion to approve. I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 19th, 2019.
Okay, this is the one where in the very first item, the vote is, even though it says I recused and left the room, I'm listed as voting, and that's going to be fixed. And
Thank
that's
you,
the first
Mr.
vote,
Miller.
number 1.
Thank you, Martha. Noted.
I do remember most of this.
You can second it then for me.
I,
An awful
can
lot
I,
of detail. We don't normally have this much detail.
can I
Yeah.
get clarification on something?
Sure, go ahead, Chris. Well, I'd like to get a second. The motion's on the floor. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Martha. Go ahead, Chris.
Item number 4. Never, all right, never, this was Island Marine Corp is Dead Eyes, Ranowski, right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, never mind, I got it.
Okay. Questions or concerns on the minutes, the changes? If not, all is in favor. Okay.
I.
Ben,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Martha,
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative. Motion carries. We approve these minutes unanimous. Thank you.
Ken,
Yeah. Andre.
Ken, yeah, thanks. I didn't vote on that. I'm reading. I'm gonna have to abstain. I don't really remember all of that. So I'm just gonna abstain on that and be safe.
Okay.
On the 19th minutes,
Okay. So the vote then will be four in favor, 1 abstention.
yeah, it's just that I'm having trouble remembering all of that detail, but it's safe. They're approved. Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discuss and act on the town manager contract negotiations and job performance, character, physical, and mental health. The meeting may be held pursuant to Rhode Island Law 42461A1. The meeting may be held in closed session for discussions of job performance, character, physical, or mental health of person to persons, provided persons affected have been notified in advance in writing and advising to be required that discussion will be held at the meeting. That notification has been made. We will be going into closed session on this one and also items number 14, 15, and 16.
Ken?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the other set of minutes that we got, that's for what, the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. As I said, we'll be going into closed session for several items. I anticipate we will be coming out of closed session if someone wants to stand by, and we'll make any announcements if votes were taken. But we will be going into, anyone listening and not in a closed session with us can stand by. For those of us who will be participating in a closed session, you'll need to sign off for this meeting and go into the closed session. Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All those in favor? Andre?
Aye.
Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye, and signing off.
I vote in affirmative also. We'll be going into closed session. Good night.
Thank you.
I think we have everyone, don't we? Not quite. Am I?
Not
Can you,
yet, I don't think.
can you hear me?
Yes, Mark, we have you.
Okay, thanks.
Just waiting for Andre and Sven to connect.
Because I come back on, it says you've been put on hold, but it never tells me I've been taken off.
It's good you introduced yourself. That's helpful to everybody. Thank you.
Andre,
All good?
Here's Jim and Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Jim.
Andre, we're having some problems with your audio. Still having problems with your audio. Andre.
Is he on
Ken,
a
you got
phone or
me?
is he trying to? How are you connecting, Andre? I guess he's not.
All right. Thank you. Let me call in.
He says he's only got one bar. Let's go on without him. Yep. I think that's the latest email from him. Yeah, it is. All right. Molly, are we open now?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. All right, we're back in open session. Back in open session on the council meeting, July 15th. Now 10:44. I'll make an announcement that on item number 12 on the agenda with negotiations of town manager contract, one vote was taken in closed session and it was unanimous. It will not be announced at this time. We're in negotiations. I'll make an announcement that I'll make a motion. I'm sorry. I make a motion on item number 14. I'll make a motion to enter in memorandum of agreement between the International Brotherhood of Police Officers Local 720 and the town of New Shoreham. Whereas the collective bargaining agreement expires on June 30th, 2020, and whereas the town of New Shoreham has indicated to the local a certain amount of uncertainty due to the COVID-19 crisis, the town and the union hereby agree to the following. Parties agree that for the period July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, there will be 0% increase in salary. In consideration thereof, the town agrees there will be no layoffs or furloughs during this period. Parties agree that the private detail rate will be increased to $45 per hour. This shall not apply to town details. The parties further agree that there'll be a wage opener for the 2021 contract year and the 2022 and 23 contract year. Parties agree that all remaining contractual agreements remain in full force and in effect. That is my motion.
Second.
Seconded by Chris Willard. Further discussion? All those in favor? Chris?
Aye.
Sven? Aye. Martha?
Aye.
I'll point out that Andre Boudreau is not able to contact back into the meeting at this time. So I will vote in the affirmative. The motion carries 4 the affirmative and 1 not present. Next item is pertaining to items number 15 and 16. I'll make a motion to grant permanent and temporary easements together with other terms and conditions as presented, National Grid and Orsted, for a total consideration of $560,942, subject to final square footage calculations, approximately $465,000 of which is to be used to deploy a backup connectivity solution to establish and maintain CAI connectivity needed as a direct result of the fiber splice/cable repair, and a temporary easement target for construction and reburial of the undersea cable of October 15th, 2020 to May 15th, 2021, subject to clarification of the language concerning extra work in the project execution window and subject to the negotiation team's approval of the final language of the agreement. That is my motion.
Second.
Seconded by Chris Willie. Further discussion or comments? All those in favor? Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative also. Andre is not present. Motion carries. 4 votes to the affirmative, 1 not present. Thank you all for your time and efforts in the late hour. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All those in favor? Chris?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I vote in the affirmative also. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. 10.
Good night.
Good night, Catherine.
Good night.